The image is one of the most powerful in all of Japanese history. A lone swordsman, dressed in worn but immaculate clothing, walking alone along a rain-swept road. He has no master, no clan, no castle to call home. He carries two swords, the katana and the shorter wakizashi, that are the only proof of his status. He eats when he can find work as a bodyguard, a mercenary, or a hired sword. He sleeps in doorways or in the cheap inns of the floating world. He is feared and pitied, respected and despised. He is a Ronin, a masterless samurai. The word literally means wave man, a drifter, a man tossed about by fate like a wave on the ocean. The Ronin has become a romantic figure in Western culture, the lone wolf, the wandering swordsman, the antihero who follows his own code when the code of his lord has failed him. Think of Toshiro Mifune in Yojimbo, or the man with no name in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, which were directly inspired by samurai films. Think of Lone Wolf and Cub, the manga and film series about a Ronin who wanders Japan with his infant son seeking revenge. The Ronin is the samurai who has fallen from grace. He is the warrior without a war. He is the knight without a king. But who were the real Ronin? What was their life actually like? Were they noble outcasts or dangerous criminals? And how did thousands of samurai suddenly find themselves masterless at the dawn of Japan's modern era? Today, we are going to walk that rain-swept road with the Ronin. We will separate the romantic myth from the harsh reality. We will meet the men who lived and died without a lord, and we will discover that the Ronin, far from being a mere footnote in samurai history, played a central role in shaping the destiny of Japan. To understand the Ronin, you must first understand the samurai and the lord, the daimyo. In feudal Japan, from the 12th century to the 19th, the samurai was defined by his relationship to a lord. A samurai swore an oath of loyalty, chugi, to a daimyo, a regional warlord. In return, the daimyo provided the samurai with a stipend, usually measured in koku, the amount of rice needed to feed one man for 1 year. The samurai lived in the daimyo's castle town, wore his lord's mon, pressed, and fought in his lord's wars. If the daimyo died, the samurai served his heir. If the daimyo was defeated and dispossessed, the samurai was expected to find a new lord or become Ronin. Ronin, then, were not a separate class. They were samurai who had lost their connection to a lord. Some lost their lords through no fault of their own. Their daimyo died without an heir, and the shogunate abolished the domain. Their daimyo was defeated in battle, and the victor seized his lands. Their daimyo fell out of favor with the shogun and was forced into retirement. These Ronin were victims of circumstance. They were not dishonorable, they were simply other Ronin lost their lords through their own actions. They were dismissed for incompetence, for crimes, for quarrels with other samurai. They chose to leave, or were forced to leave, their master's service. These Ronin were considered dishonorable. They had failed in their duty. They were outcasts, not just economically, but morally. The most famous Ronin in Japanese history, the 47 Ronin of Ako, were a special case. Their lord, Asano Naganori, was forced to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, after drawing his sword in the shogun's palace. His domain was confiscated, and his samurai became Ronin. They spent 2 years planning revenge against the man who had provoked their lord. Then they attacked his mansion, killed him, and presented his head at their lord's grave. They then surrendered to the shogun and were ordered to commit seppuku themselves. They became national heroes, the exemplars of chugi, of samurai loyalty. But they were Ronin, they were masterless. And their story shows that a Ronin could be honorable, even more honorable than a samurai with a lord. The life of a typical Ronin was not glorious. It was desperate. In the early 17th century, after the Battle of Sekigahara, 1600, and the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan entered a long period of peace. No major wars were fought for over 250 years. The samurai, who had been warriors, became bureaucrats. They managed domains, collected taxes, and maintained order. But there were too many samurai. The shogunate limited the number of samurai each daimyo could employ. Samurai who could not find positions became ronin. Their numbers swelled. By the mid-17th century, there were over 400,000 ronin in Japan. Some found work as mercenaries. Others became teachers of martial arts. Others opened fencing schools. Others turned to crime. The ronin were a destabilizing force. They were armed, trained, and desperate. They could be hired by anyone willing to pay. They participated in peasant revolts, assassinations, and street brawls. The shogunate worried constantly about a ronin uprising, the famous Shimabara rebellion of 1637-8. A Christian-led peasant revolt attracted many ronin to its cause. After the rebellion was crushed, the shogunate passed laws restricting the movement of ronin. They had to register with authorities. They had to carry identification. They could be executed for vagrancy. The romantic image of the wandering ronin, free and independent, was not how the ronin saw themselves. They saw themselves as fallen men, as failures, as ghosts of a warrior class that no longer had a war to fight. The novelist Yamagata Masakage, a former samurai himself, wrote in 1652, "The ronin is like a fallen cherry blossom. He is still a flower, but he is no longer on the branch. The wind blows him where it will. He has no home. He has no purpose. He waits for death." But the ronin also became the subject of a powerful romantic mythology. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as Japan became more urbanized and commercialized, the merchant class grew wealthy. The samurai, fixed to their stipends, grew poor. They resented the merchants. They looked back to an imagined golden age when the warrior was king. The ronin, with his wandering life and his freedom from the constraints of domain bureaucracy, became a symbol of that lost age. Kabuki plays and popular novels featured ronin heroes, men who lived by their swords, who fought against injustice, who answered to no one but their own conscience. The most famous of these fictional ronin was Sukeroku, a handsome, brash swordsman who defended the weak and humiliated the corrupt. The real ronin were nothing like Sukeroku. But the myth was powerful. It allowed the samurai class to imagine that they could be free, that they could be heroic, that they could still matter in a world that no longer needed warriors. This tension between the real ronin and the romantic ronin is central to understanding Japan's transition to modernity when the Meiji Restoration came in 1868. The samurai class was abolished. All samurai became ronin, at least in theory. They were given bonds in exchange for their stipends, but many were impoverished. Some rebelled. The last samurai rebellion, led by Saigo Takamori in 1877, was a ronin uprising. Saigo had been a hero of the Meiji Restoration. He had helped overthrow the shogunate. But when the new government abolished the samurai class, he led his followers in a doomed rebellion. He died in battle, and his story was romanticized. He became the model of the tragic ronin, the warrior who fought for honor in a world that no longer understood honor. Saigo's rebellion was the end of the samurai. But it was also the beginning of the Ronin as a modern legend. The most famous story of the Ronin, the story that every Japanese schoolchild learns, is the tale of the 47 Ronin. Let us tell it properly. In 1701, Lord Asano of Akko was ordered to receive envoys from the emperor in the shogun's palace in Edo, modern Tokyo. A shogunate official named Kira Yoshinaka was assigned to instruct Asano in court etiquette. Kira was corrupt and arrogant. He demanded bribes from Asano. Asano refused. Kira humiliated him publicly. Asano, unable to contain his rage, drew his short sword and struck Kira on the forehead. Drawing a sword in the shogun's palace was a capital offense. Asano was ordered to commit seppuku. His domain was confiscated. His samurai became ronin. The shogunate expected them to disperse and find new lords. Instead, they secretly pledged to avenge their master. Their leader was a samurai named Oishi Yoshio. He pretended to become a drunkard and a womanizer so that Kira's spies would think the ronin had lost their will. For 2 years, Oishi lived a life of shameless debauchery. His wife left him, his followers despaired. But it was all a ruse. On the snowy night of December 14th, 1702, the 47 Ronin attacked Kira's mansion. They fought through his guards. They found Kira hiding in a charcoal shed. Oishi beheaded him. The Ronin then marched to Asano's grave, placed Kira's head on it, and offered prayers. They surrendered to the shogunate. The public was wildly sympathetic. The shogunate was torn. The Ronin had broken the law. They had committed murder and violated the prohibition against vendettas. But they had acted with the purest loyalty. The shogun ordered them to commit seppuku, but he allowed them to die as honorable samurai, not as criminals. They died on February 4th, 1703. Their graves at Sengaku-ji Temple in Tokyo remain a pilgrimage site to this day. The story of the 47 Ronin is the ultimate expression of the Ronin ideal. Masterless, but not honorless. Bound by no lord, but bound by something deeper: duty, loyalty, love. The Ronin in this telling is not a failure. He is a hero. He is the samurai who kept his soul when everything else was taken from him. The reality of the Ronin was rarely so noble. Most Ronin were not avenging their lords. They were trying to survive. They took menial jobs: bodyguards, bansas, even manual laborers. They married into merchant families, losing their samurai status. They became bandits. The 17th century writer Ihara Saikaku described Ronin living in abandoned temples, eating grass, selling their swords to buy food. He wrote of Ronin who looked like samurai but smelled like beggars. He wrote of Ronin who would sell their own children for a bowl of rice. The romantic Ronin is a fiction. The real Ronin is a tragedy. And yet the fiction has power. The fiction tells us that honor is not given by a lord, it is chosen. The fiction tells us that a man without a master can still have a code. The fiction tells us that the Ronin, for all his suffering, is free. And freedom, even when it comes with hunger and cold, has its own nobility. So what can we learn from the Ronin? First, that identity is fragile. The samurai was defined by his relationship to a lord. When that relationship ended, he was lost. He was still a warrior, but he had no one to fight for. He was still a man of honor, but he had no one to honor. The Ronin experience teaches us that our identities, our jobs, our titles, our relationships are not permanent. They can be taken away, and we must be prepared to rebuild ourselves when they are. Second, that loyalty is complex. The Ronin were loyal to a dead lord. That loyalty was irrational. It could not benefit them. It could only get them killed. And yet, we admire it. We admire it because it is pure. It is loyalty for its own sake. The 47 Ronin did not avenge Asano because they expected a reward. They did it because they had to, because not doing it would have made them less than human. That kind of loyalty, the loyalty that asks for nothing in return, is rare, and we honor it because we wish we were capable of it. Third, that the line between hero and outlaw is thin. The Ronin were criminals. They broke the law, they committed murder, and yet they are celebrated as heroes. The law said they were wrong. The people said they were right. That tension is always present. The Ronin remind us that sometimes following the law is not the same as following justice, and that those who break the law may be the most honorable among us. Fourth, that the end of an era is not the end of a people. The samurai class was abolished in 1868. The Ronin disappeared, or so we think, but the spirit of the samurai, the spirit of loyalty, discipline, and honor, did not disappear. It was absorbed into modern Japan. It became the spirit of the Japanese soldier, the Japanese businessman, the Japanese citizen. The Ronin, who had no master, became the model for the modern individual, free, autonomous, responsible for his own code. That is a strange legacy for a class of masterless warriors, but it is a profound one. Today, you can visit the graves of the 47 Ronin at Sengaku-ji in Tokyo. You can see the statues of Ronin in parks and museums. You can watch the endless films and television dramas about Ronin, the Zatoichi series about a blind monsieur who is also a master swordsman, the Lone Wolf and Cub series about a Ronin who pushes his son in a baby carriage while seeking revenge, the Samurai Rebellion and Harakiri films that critique the samurai code. The Ronin has become a global archetype. He is Clint Eastwood in A Fistful of Dollars. He is Bruce Wayne after he loses his parents. He is every hero who has lost everything and still fights. The Ronin is the warrior without a war, the knight without a king, the man without a master, and that, perhaps, is why he haunts us. Because we have all felt masterless at some point. We have all lost our way. We have all wondered who we are when the structures that defined us collapse. The Ronin is us. He is the part of us that keeps walking even when the road is long and the rain is cold and there is no castle waiting at the end. He is the part of us that says, I have no lord, but I have my sword, and my sword is enough. That is the story of the Samurai Ronin, masterless warriors of Japan, honor without a lord, and a legend that will never ever surrender. The Ronin walks on, the rain falls. The road stretches into the mist, and somewhere in a dojo or a dream, a masterless swordsman is still practicing his cuts, still perfecting his stance, still waiting for a battle that will never come, or for one that will. The Ronin is patient. The Ronin is free. The Ronin is forever.